So let's go into the last head-to-head. It's not going to be the last Monday show because Nitro has a few more shows. But the last head-to-head for this month is on December 18th of 1995. We'll start with Nitro. Pepe's outfit, I have it like he's in a bandito type of outfit.
Yeah,
I'll include a picture. You tell me.
Yeah, he's like a bandito.
So this one, we have a big moment coming up in Nitro history. The announcers are doing their usual pre-show announcements, letting us know what's going down during the show. And out comes formerly known as Alundra Blaze. What's she doing? I thought she was with WWF. She gets on her mic and she cuts her classic promo saying that she was known as Alundra Blaze, but now she is Medusa. And she brings out the WWF Women's title and she says, I'm going to show you what I think of it. And she drops it into the trash can. One of the most famous moments of the Monday Night Wars.
That indeed it is. Trash can.
And that's what I think of the WWF Women's Championship belt.
Luger was the first bombshell. This is the second one, big one, I think.
WCW could have done so much more with Medusa. We're going to talk about it in later episodes. They turn out to absolutely botch it.
This was a great start, though.
Yes.
She puts the title in the trash can. She says, this is where the big boys play, and now it's where the big girls play. And the announcers said, like, this is shocking. Mongo even says, Connecticut's not going to like this.
Medusa has gone on now to say she does regret putting the title in the trash, and then when she got into the Hall of Fame, she did that thing where she pulled it out of the trash.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
But still, huge moment. And before we start the show, Mongo brings out his friend, William Refrigerator Perry, and tells Perry to make sure no more wrestlers come up to the announce table. But the first match of the night is, I guess, Ric Flair is deciding Eddie Guerrero's worth it this time because it is Ric Flair versus Eddie Guerrero. Last time he said Eddie Guerrero wasn't in his league and he let Brian Pillman have the match. But Ric Flair says, you can wrestle me now. The crowd was very into this match, pro Flair crowd. And again, like I said, they're doing a pretty good job with Guerrero. Yeah. And so he's getting some good applauses from the crowd.
And he gets a lot of offense in this match.
Yeah, he does. The match turns in Ric Flair's favor after Guerrero misses a dive to the outside. He injures his knee. And, if you got a bad leg around Ric Flair, he smells blood. And he's going to target that. So eventually he does get the figure four applied. But Eddie Guerrero's not going to give up. So he passes out. And Ric Flair scores the rare pinfall victory from the figure four leg lock.
It was good. It helped both people. Eddie Guerrero is now seen closer to Ric Flair's league than previously. So
yeah, they gave Guerrero the out by saying he hurt his leg.
Yeah.
So after the match, Arn comes out to congratulate Flair, and Flair stomps on Eddie some more after the match because he ain't happy that he took him that far. But then that sets up an interview with Mean Gene and Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Arn says right now they're on a roll. Today was Eddie. Then last week it was Paul Orndorff. He tells Paul Orndorff that he has respect for him, but if you jump on one of us, you jump on all of us. So then Ric Flair gets on the mic and he starts to talk, but the Taskmaster comes out and interrupts Flair. The Taskmaster tells Flair that he has a loose cannon on his ship because last week Brian Pillman says some things about the Dungeon of Doom. Sullivan says he holds every member of his team dear, and he tells Arn that he better keep Pillman on a short leash or he'll come looking for him. But Flair's like, hey, Taskmaster, relax, man. We're brothers. We're bonded.
And Arn says, if you got a problem with Pillman, you have a problem with Flair and Anderson. You got a problem with Four Horsemen.
I don't think you want problems with the Four Horsemen. But Taskmaster says, if you don't keep Pillman on a short leash, then this is WCW and there are no allegiances anywhere, and he just leaves. And then randomly, Craig Pitbull Pittman comes up to the announce table. He has the microphone, but he forgets how to hold a mic because he puts it down as he's talking, and Bischoff has to remind him to pick the mic up. He's looking for a manager. He asks Bobby Heenan if he will manage him. Heenan says, I'm not a manager anymore, but I'll find someone for you. And then Pittman says, if he doesn't find anyone to manage him soon, then he will take no prisoners.
It's so weird because this storyline, I think it plays out on Nitro for like one more week and then you never see it again. And apparently it's resolved on the Saturday show, and the manager ends up being Teddy Long.
Mm-hmm. This storyline pretty much goes nowhere, so they eventually just drop it. So then we'll go to WWF. We'll go Raw. The first match is Jeff Jarrett versus Fatu. This is Jeff Jarrett's return match since he came back yesterday in your house. Jeff Jarrett wins by disqualification because Jeff Jarrett has the figure four applied to Fatu, but Ahmed Johnson comes out and attacks Jeff Jarrett. Fatu does hit his cutter on this one too.
Yes, he does. Fatu does a prototype RKO during this, so we thought that was interesting.
Which is funny to me because I remember the story of Diamond Dallas Page and Triple H that said this story. Triple H is one of his first finishers he had there was a cutter. And he says Diamond Dallas called him and said, hey, man, I'm starting to get this diamond cutter over. Could you choose another finish? And that's why Triple H has the pedigree. Did he have that same phone call with Fatu?
I could, not because Fatu keeps doing it. He doesn't stop.
And then we have an interview with Gorilla Monsoon. Yesterday in the pay-per-view, Jeff Jarrett said he announced himself as the number one entrant into the 1996 Royal Rumble. Monsoon said, it don't work like that, pal. You're not the number one entrant to the Royal Rumble. And he says, instead, I'm going to have you in a match with Ahmed Johnson.
Yeah, dude. He's like, nah, you're not even in this thing at all anymore, buddy.
He's like, you want to be in the Rumble? Not a chance, pal. Monsoon also says that Diesel is not currently the number one contender right now. And he says Diesel's a big boy who can handle it, and he'll get his chance one day. That's not going to make Diesel happy to hear that.
No.
And then the next match with them, we did have a Goldust vignette. He tells Razor he is watching his every move, and there is an unbreakable bond between them. He tells Razor he oozes machismo, and they should ooze it together.
Nah, he says it's reeking with the smell of taboo. So he is really playing into the sexual nature of the character now.
So we had mentioned that Goldust, he's now playing into a sexual nature, whereas before he wasn't. I listened to an interview with Goldust, and he said the reason for that was for the first few months of the Goldust character, that wasn't what he was trying to do. That wasn't what was intended. But later on, he said he was working some house shows with Savio Vega, and Savio Vega convinced him to do some of the rubbing and some of the more sexual stuff to get the crowd over, because Goldust had mentioned to Savio that he wasn't getting as much heat as he wanted. And he did it at the house show, and he got great heat there. So he started doing that more and more. And now it's led to this point where it is essential to the character. So I thought that was interesting, just how wrestlers go about evolving characters can just happen. And sometimes it's another wrestler helping them get to that point. Because even in WCW side, it's Scott Hall who convinced Sting to do the Crow.
Yeah, so really interesting.
The next match on WCW, we have Lex Luger with Jimmy Hart versus Marcus Bagwell. Lex Luger wins with a torture rack.
There you go.
So after the match, we have an interview with Lex Luger and Jimmy Hart. Again, Jimmy Hart says Luger is uncrowned WCW champion, and Luger says he wants to go through everyone in the WCW and says if it wasn't for Hogan, he would be the champion, and Macho Man won't get away from him this time.
He's got more heat as Hogan now.
It's pretty much the same thing they both said last week.
We're just bringing it up again to slowly progress the feud.
So the second match for Raw is Buddy Landel versus Sparkplug Holly. Buddy Landel wins. My notes for this is, why is this match happening? And shockingly, there was a small Buddy chant that broke out during the match. So he did have some fans there.
Buddy Landel used Flair's WWF music, at least in the pop version. So I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same.
But Landel wins with his corkscrew elbow drop.
Yeah, it's like a running elbow drop thing, little dealio.
And then we have a Brother Love interview with Ted DiBiase. DiBiase talks about the whole Santa thing that happened yesterday. And he says this one is from the South Pole, and his name is Xanta.
I would expect something like this from like the 80s.
This segment is so bad, and the Xanta thing goes where you thought it would go, nowhere.
Yeah. I had notes that I was like, God, I hope this doesn't continue, but I don't think you see this character again.
I saw him one time on Saturday night, and I think that was it.
WC then says that he predicts 1996 will be the year of the $1 million champion because everybody's got the price for the $1 million man.
Just awful stuff. Awful. The third match on WCW was Earl Robert Eaton versus Sting. During this match, the crowd doesn't seem to be into it because they do the wave during the match.
The wave. They couldn't care less about this match.
Yeah.
Sting notices, and Sting, like a pro, he does the wave because to try to get the crowd to to make the crowd aware that he knows they're doing it. But I believe
Eaton does something too.
They still do it a few more rotations.
Yeah. It's surprising because most crowds, even though they're not into Hogan or maybe even Macho Man, they're usually into Sting.
They usually like Sting.
And Sting's not getting booed per se, but maybe it's just the opponent choice they don't care about.
It's that and this whole thing with Hogan and Savage, people are souring on it.
Yeah, I do think that some of Hogan's, I don't know if you call it heat, but some of that's rubbing off on Macho Man. But Sting wins with a Scorpion Deathlock, and notably, Eaton does tap out like we'd see today. Back in this time, it wasn't universal that wrestlers tapped out. They would just tell the ref to give up. So I always prefer it to see someone tap out rather than to just say it to the ref. So this is yet another win for Sting. So after this, we have an interview with Sting. Gene talks about Starrcade coming up in the Triangle match. Sting says everyone in the world knows what he thinks of Flair and that he will never forgive Flair. He was a little miffed that Luger said he was going to run through the whole WCW roster as if Sting wasn't there. He tells Lex that he wants to be a 6-time world champion. Third match for Raw is Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji versus Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title. Goldust comes out before the match to watch Razor Ramon, and as Razor Ramon is doing his entrance, glitter comes down instead of his fireworks.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, really get into Razor's head. Razor hits a top rope bulldog on Yokozuna, and the lights start to flicker, and the Undertaker comes out with a casket. And Yokozuna runs out because he's terrified, and Razor Ramon wins by countout. I thought it was kind of random that the Undertaker came out. I know they had a stare down the week before, but they haven't fully established this as like a feud right now.
They're just going off the previous history, I guess.
Yeah, it's so random because you would think they would more be trying to build towards Undertaker being the number one contender for the Royal Rumble. So why are we wasting our time with this? But the match between Yokozuna and Razor Ramon it's hard. At this point, Yokozuna, he's a heavy guy, heavier than even before. So it was about as good as the Yokozuna match is going to be. It wasn't bad, but it was slow paced.
Well, Doc Hendricks does something with Razor after the match.
Doc asks Razor what does he think about Goldust. Razor says the letter that Goldust sent him, talking about how handsome Razor is, how hot Razor is. And Razor tells Goldust, yeah, you're right. But he doesn't play that way. He says Goldust can do his thing, but not with him.
I do like that they had Razor be like, I'm cool with you being gay, but just not with me, you know? So they didn't really do like anything homophobic or anything, so it was nice.
Yeah, that was pretty progressive for that time. But we'll go ahead and do the main event for Nitro. It was the Giant with the Taskmaster and Jimmy Hart versus Macho Man for the WCW title. Macho Man gets a pretty good reaction from this crowd. His entrance made him feel like a big star, which he is the champion, so he should be. So this one, Macho Man isn't affected by the Hulk Hogan rub-off here.
He was a kind of slow match because he can't really do much with the Giant because Giant has to know so everything at this point because he's doing the whole unstoppable Giant.
Giant gets a two-handed choke slam on Macho Man at one point, and then later on he goes for a top rope splash but misses, and this allows Macho Man to do the elbow drop on Giant. But Giant is able to throw Macho Man off of him after a 2 count. Yeah, he's pissed. So he goes outside and removes one of the mats outside of the ring, exposing the concrete floor. He goes for a suplex, but Macho Man smartly on the upswing of it, he holds onto the ropes so that way Giant can't slam him.
Nice. I thought that was quite nice.
So you don't normally see that. They'll just reverse it at the bottom. He reverses it as he's getting lifted up. So the Giant is the one that slams back first into the concrete. We get to later in the match. The Giant hits the choke slam on Macho Man, but he stalls to mock Hogan, I guess. He hits a leg drop on Macho Man, and he goes for the pin, but Hulk Hogan doesn't like this mockery of his move, and he comes out and hits the Giant with a chair, causing a disqualification, and then he hits the ref with a chair. And then the Taskmaster gets some of that work too.
He's taking everybody out with his chair. But then Mongo and then Fridge do eventually get Hogan separated.
But as usual, Mean Gene gets in the ring and he has an interview with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. Gene tells Hogan he might have bitten off more than he could chew and could be suspended. Hogan says he deserves a title shot. He doesn't care about the ref stuff. The Giant does try to come back to the ring, but the Taskmaster and Craig Pipple try to restrain him, which gives Hogan plenty of time to get his chair again and do his drive-by chair shot.
It is absolutely hilarious to see Hogan do a drive-by chair shot.
Beyond hilarious.
But after he dispatches him and Sullivan, because he hit Sullivan's chair too, he goes back in the ring, and then him and Savage celebrate.
They did have this line from Macho Man, which I hated. He gets on the mic and says he may have needed Hulk Hogan's help tonight, but Hulk Hogan sure didn't need his.
Yeah, I was like, what a way to minimize Savage. He's the champion right now.
You can still put up your friend, but you just seem to be downplaying yourself and admitting to yourself that you're not as good as this guy, and you're the damn champion. So I hated that line. All that self-serving stuff I don't like it. But anyways, Hogan then says he's sick of this probation stuff and says Savage owes him a title shot. Savage tells Hulk Hogan, you went a bit Looney Tunes today. and says he will have his title shot, but he will have to have his title shot after he gets through with Flair next week and then Starrcade. Hogan says he knows Savage can beat Flair and all the other contenders, and they will have their match when the time comes and the fans cheer. All right, so that is the end of Nitro. So the ending to Raw this week is a match. It's not even like a promo. It's just this another unbelievably cheesy Shawn Michaels video. The way they present this video as if Shawn Michaels is dead. It is some of the worst shit I've ever seen. And this is not what 90s audiences wanted to see.
Not for me.
Just watch the video for yourself to really get the full effect. Awful, awful, awful.
The winner for this week, rating-wise, is WCW again, 2.7 to 2.3. I would happen to agree. I picked WCW. As long as these Shawn Michaels videos keep main eventing.
You had some good matches on WCW side. The Ric Flair Eddie Guerrero match was good. The Lex Luger vs. Bagwell wasn't bad. And then the main event, even though it ended disqualification, had more stuff going on. And we get the drive-by chair shot, which is always legendary. So yes, WCW picks up another one for both of us. And this is the last head-to-head for 1995. We'll go to the next week, which is the Christmas episode of Nitro, December 25th, 1995. There is no Raw for this week. And of course, Pepe's outfit is Santa Claus.
Naturally.
And the first match is Lex Luger with Jimmy Hart versus Scotty Riggs.
Yeah.
Last week, Luger beat Bagwell. So
He's like, give me the other one.
Yeah. The torture rack is getting very over with the crowd. The crowd really wanted to see Luger hit the torture rack.
This is probably the most perfected move in the WCW. He's going to give it up.
I remember when he was motioning that he was going to do it, the crowd was going berserk. And then when he hit it, they loved it.
That's a great finish.
Yes, it is. But after this match, there is an interview with Sting. Gene asks Sting, once again, what's up with you and Luger? Sting says, enough is enough. I'm tired of being asked this dang question. He says Luger is his friend, and he won't leave his friends, especially when his friends need him. And he's going to do his best to change them. Sting moves on to talking about Ric Flair, and he says he wants to put Flair in the Scorpion Deathlock and never let go, which is funny because during the last match they had, he let go immediately. Yeah. So if you feel this way, why did you do it then? And then Luger talks about the Starrcade, the New Japan wrestlers versus the WCW wrestlers, and he says that the best wrestlers are in America, USA, baby. And then he goes down to his match, which is Sting versus Big Bubba. And one thing that was weird is they had Sting come out to do the ramp interview, and then there was a commercial break, and then he comes back out for his entrance.
Yeah.
So they had him go to the ramp, leave, come back out. So that was kind of funny.
The match is nothing really too crazy. Sting wins versus Bubba's suplex attempt to a pin. This was just basically to establish that Sting still has momentum.
But yeah, Sting wins, and then we have an interview with Lex Luger and Jimmy Hart. Once again, we make mention that Luger is the uncrowned WCW champion. And then during this interview, Craig Pittman comes out, and he sucks up to Lex Luger saying, you're going to be the champion. And then he asks Jimmy Hart if he will be his manager. Hart isn't going for it. He tells Pittman to take his shirt off and compare his body to Lex Luger's. Then he tells him this. I don't really know what he means. He tells Pittman to go take a quarter and call a few good men. I don't really know what that means.
Call a manager who needs a few good men or something. I think it was just basically a military reference to call a manager for a few good men because the movie was out and it was military. So I think that's all it was. Pittman's like, I'll find someone, so he's not too happy.
Yeah, he doesn't like being told off, which if someone like Jimmy Hart told me off, I'd be like, okay, I'm pissed off too.
To be fair, his body does not compare to what.
No, but they don't really get into the interview because of that interruption. So now we're moving on to the next thing, which is Dean Malenko versus Mr. JL. The only thing I really noted here was that I really don't care for this Mr. JL gimmick just because they haven't even no interview time, no character development. He's just there.
Yeah, this match was just basically to give Dean Malenko a win, and they mentioned his 1,000 holds.
Malenko wins with a leg lock, and Mr. JL taps before he even puts the damn thing on. He taps immediately.
It was not the Texas Cloverleaf.
So then after that match, we have an interview with Ric Flair. He tells Savage that he's about to wrestle Ric Flair on national television, and the great one won't be denied. And while Flair's talking, Jimmy Hart comes out and apologizes to Flair for the Taskmaster interrupting them last week, and says he owes Flair for saving him from Savage. And Jimmy Hart says he always pays his debts. And he pretty much sucks up to Ric Flair.
Yeah, to help repay you, I will be in your corner tonight.
And Ric Flair loves having his ego stroked, so it doesn't take much to have Flair say, yep, you can join me. So then we go into our main event of this Christmas episode, which is Ric Flair with Jimmy Hart versus Macho Man for the WCW Championship.
I think you can guess how it's going to end.
Surprise, surprise. The WCW main event, we do end with disqualification. They did have a pretty good match going until Lex Luger comes out and attacks Macho Man, which does cause a disqualification. During the match, Mongo makes mention of the WWF Women's title, and he says it should have been thrown into the kitty litter. Anytime they make a stab at the competition, I always note it. But Savage eventually turns the tables on Luger and starts beating Luger up. and Sting comes out to break up Savage and Luger, and then Sting eventually gets the upper hand on Flair, gets him out of the ring, and Savage gets Luger out of the ring. And Sting and Macho Man then get in each other's faces and slap the shit out of each other for a few times. They both take multiple turns just swinging at each other. And that's how the show ends. Not a bad episode. Again, another disqualification for the title.
It seemed like a filler episode because of the holidays.
I think most people knew that Ric Flair was going to win because he was already advertised for the Triangle match for Starrcade, which happens in 2 days. They might have mentioned that if Savage lost, then he's in a Triangle match. They might have done that. I might have just forgotten.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but maybe they could have said that on Saturday show.
But what was their rating since they ran unopposed? It might be low because it's Christmas, though.
So, Christmas of 95, 2.5. It's pretty much a similar standard audience. It is down from the week prior, 2.7.
It is Christmas Day, but then again, they are unopposed, so it evens out, I guess,
Yeah, it's just a wash.
So next, we'll go into Starrcade, which takes place on December 27th, 1995. We have 7 matches between WCW wrestlers and New Japan. The first match is Chris Benoit versus Jushin Thunder Liger. And all of these New Japan wrestlers are going to be accompanied by Sonny Ono.
Yeah. They're establishing him as like the main guy in this whole deal with New Japan.
Yeah, they're trying to make it look like if New Japan wins, they could buy WCW or something. But during this match, I did note that Benoit gets a Boston Crab, but it looks exactly like a Lion Tamer.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they did that. But during this match, the Taskmaster comes out and yells at Benoit, which allows Liger to pin Benoit. So thankfully, it looks like we're officially moving past the Dungeon of Doom Hogan thing. Now they're more focused on the Horsemen, which thank goodness we can all move on from that.
New Japan up 1-0.
And it was one of WCW's own that did it. So we have an interview with Eddie Guerrero backstage. Eddie said he's mad at that the Taskmaster went out there since it wasn't his match, and he's angry that he cost WCW. He is honored to be selected to be one of the 7 wrestlers to represent WCW, and he's proud to be there. Pretty much just like he's a team player interview. I do think that the wrestlers do a good job of presenting this sort of meaningless tournament as being a big deal.
Yeah, they did. When I was watching it, I was actually getting pretty into it.
Yeah, they actually made me feel, which again, there's been pretty much no hype for this. They do make you feel like, as they get on here, it's like, oh no, I want WCW to win, so they do a good job with that. And I know I'm going to butcher some of these names, so I apologize to anybody. But the next match is Koji Kanemoto versus Alex Wright. I did note that there is a USA chant breaks out, and neither wrestler in the ring is from the USA.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny.
I also noted. I thought this was an interesting match. I liked it.
The finish, though, was a bit weak for me.
They didn't want to do such a decisive one, so they just did it rolling the legs. I don't know.
Koji Kanemoto wins the match. New Japan is up 2-0. There's an interview with Sonny Ono after the match. He says New Japan will soon be 5-0, and after they win, he might buy WCW and then Iowa. Gene tells Sonny Ono WCW isn't for sale, and Ono responds with, "This is America. Everything's for sale." Fair point, sir. Fair point. Then Ono mentions that he has friends in the Dungeon of Doom, and Gene asks if they were paid off because Taskmaster just cost WCW a victory, and Ono plays off the question and doesn't really answer it.
So what's funny about the Iowa content is that Sonny Ono lives in Iowa now, and he runs an auto shop, it looks like. I don't know if he lived there at the time, too, but I just thought that was interesting.
WCW really needs to pick up a victory here. We have Masahiro Chono versus Lex Luger, and Luger's getting good reactions from the crowd.
I will mention Masahiro Chono's entrance music was the exact same entrance music they gave Bull Nakano just a few weeks prior.
Recycling some themes here.
Yeah.
But Luger wins with the torture rack. Chono has a diving attempt that he misses, and this allows Luger to get the torture rack, and the crowd, again, love that they get to see the torture rack. And now WCW wins the match, so they are now down 2-1. Much needed victory. Then we have a backstage interview with Sting. Sting says that WCW is making a comeback, and Johnny B. Bad will even the score. Mean Gene asks Sting about his opponent for the night, the one who beat him for the U.S. title. And Sting says that was just a bad day for him, but tonight pride is on the line. He tells Sonny Ono, you can't buy WCW, and he won't let you buy it over his dead body. He says he loves Luger, but Sting has to do what he has to do, and says he's going to beat him and Ric Flair.
He also says, Sting says that he wants Savage so bad he can taste him.
I can almost taste it.
So then we go to the next match, which has John B. Bad, and he has a Diamond Doll versus
Masa Saito.
Diamond Doll comes out. She's doing cartwheels. She's doing a whole bunch of stuff for John B. Bad. So she seems to be happy once again after being miserable with Diamond Dallas Page there for a while. And then Brain has a funny joke about DDP. He says DDP stands for Diamond Dallas Page.
Got him.
And Jake, do you want to tell people what Sonny Ono says?
Sonny Ono gets on the mic and says that Diamond Doll should be at home cooking, and this was wrong with America. Diamond Doll then takes the mic from Ono and says, "This ain't a Japanese bathhouse. She ain't no geisha girl." And I don't know if that would fly that. Anyway, she said, "This sport is just for men, and what is Ono doing here?" Mm-hmm. Then Ono tells Joey Bad to control his women. We do.
Yep.
You have to listen to it. It is absolutely hilarious. His body proportions weird to me. He's just like a compact man.
I did make mention he is well past his prime. He is 53 years old at the time of this match.
Old.
Both men do land some good chops, strong style. But yeah, this is not a great match just because Masahiro, his best days are behind him, clearly.
It does end with a DQ because Masahiro tosses Johnny Bad over the top rope, which in WCW is a disqualification. Yep. They get rid of this rule a bit, I want to say 98, they get rid of this rule. Because WWE, they regularly toss people to the top rope, no DQ.
When I started watching this, I didn't even know about that rule because my WCW watching is very limited. I was like, why is that disqualification? It's that's just what WCW did.
This was just a way for Saito not to take a pinfall and for WCW to get a win.
Exactly. So now we're tied 2-2. And then we have an interview with Lex Luger and Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart tells the Four Horsemen that they are now in trouble with the Dungeon of Doom. Ooh. Luger tells Jimmy Hart that he wants to go out to his match alone tonight. Jimmy Hart just pretty much tells Lex, okay, if you don't want me out there, just please bring back home the gold, baby. So next, we got the fifth match in this best of 7. Shinjiro Otani.
Yeah, you can just do Otani.
Okay, Otani versus Eddie Guerrero. During this match, Dusty is going on about this long-ass story. It has nothing to do with anything in the match. He's really taking away from this match because he's just rambling on about nothing.
Yeah, well, because Dusty, this whole pay-per-view, he kept calling out Shivani because he would call the moves correctly. He would call it German suplex, and this is it's just a suplex. He went off about Chono's Mafia kick because he called it correctly as Mafia kick. He's like, no, it's just a kick. He's like, yeah, it was just he just went on tangents. Dusty was clearly upset about something.
But both wrestlers are really chippy with each other. Again, like I said, all these competitors are really treating this like this is a big deal. But Otani does win this match. They have a pin reversal sequence where they're going back and forth, and Otani eventually is the one who gets the pin.
I will note that the count seemed kind of fast. Maybe he was in on a take. He was in on a take.
Yeah.
But yeah, so New Japan's up 3-2.
Yep, and Guerrero does a good job showing his disappointment with letting down WCW. But then we have a backstage interview with Macho Man. Macho Man says the pressure is on him for the tournament. Says it's a team situation, but it reverses later tonight because he has to also defend the title later on. But he says he's going to make it 3-3. And I thought this was a pretty good promo for Macho Man.
Yeah, it was good.
So then now he's out for his next match here. It's going to be Tenzan versus Macho Man. And the crowd is into Macho Man here, pro Macho Man. And Macho Man wins with the elbow drop. So now it is back to being tied. Macho Man is a man of his word. He made it 3-3.
And this is a young Tenzan. He was wrestling not even too long ago. I don't even know. He might still be wrestling.
But he's a big dude, too.
Yeah, still wrestling.
So after the Macho Man match, we have a backstage interview with Flair. Flair says tonight is about the WCW, not the tournament. He doesn't have a match in this best of 7, so he's going to be fresh for the match tonight. And he says he's going to win the title. So now we have the last match in the best of 7 between New Japan and WCW. Crazy it came down to the last match.
The crowd was so hot for this.
Yep. It is Kazuki Sasaki, who is the United States champion, versus Sting. And like you said, it is huge cheers. Sting comes out with a U.S. flag, trying to get those pro-America cheers. Sasaki actually put Sting in the Scorpion Deathlock at a time, but that's not the finish. Sting hits Sasaki with a Bulldog later on and then puts the Scorpion Deathlock on Sasaki, which the crowd loves.
Faces of the fans out there, they are glued watching Sting's
They do so that Sasaki almost gets to the ropes, and then Sting drags him back to the middle, and as he does that, the crowd is so hyped because they're like, the tap out's imminent. So
Sting wins. So huge applause for Sting and WCW after this.
Getting sold to Sonny. Oh no! Yay.
Sorry. But afterwards, all the other WCW participants from the tournament come out and celebrate with Sting, and the announcers are selling this as this huge deal. And then they bring out a trophy because they won the World Cup of Wrestling. Gene comes in to interview Sting, and Sting says all he wants to say is USA. So good job, WCW. Good job, America. We beat them. And then next we get into our triangle match. So now we're done with that whole tournament. Now we're getting to the title match stuff here. So we have Sting versus Lex Luger versus Ric Flair. And in the triangle match, it should be noted that only 2 participants are in the ring at the same time. The third man is off outside the ring on the apron, and he has to tag in. But WCW, the way they pushed this match, I thought they did a pretty good job of making this match feel like this is the best of the contenders.
Luger eventually gets Sting in the torture rack, and then as he's like swinging around, he drills the ref with Sting's leg, and then Flair obviously chops Luger to get released to hold, and then tosses both men out of the ring. And then so as Flair's in the ring, ref's counting them out. As Sting is coming to go back in the ring, looks like Luger grabs Sting's leg and yanks him back down. That's what it looks like to me. Or grabs him and holds him, get double counted out.
So that means Ric Flair wins the match. Both men were counted out. I think Ric Flair, we all know he's the dirtiest player in the game, but I thought from the beginning to the end of the match, he worked the ref in like a realistic way. I just felt like at the end, he felt like he outsmarted Sting and Luger.
He did a good job of getting Luger and Sting to interact with each other instead of like attacking him. So no, that was a good job.
I thought this was a fantastic match.
Such a good way for Flair to win. And now, because Flair had been taking quite a few beatings from Sting, so now he's back in the main event.
A rare Sting loss, too.
A rare Sting loss. But immediately after this is the title match between now Savage comes out to defend his title. Early in the match, as the match is going on, you see Paul Orndorff watching from ringside with a neck brace on. So they're establishing that, so showing him, and he's continuing the storyline of his attack from the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, and we also, before the match starts, they did bring out Michael Buffer. I love it when they bring him out.
Oh, yeah. He's always, main event Buffer.
But Flair, he plays dirty during the match, and he also attacks Macho Man's injured arm. Jimmy Hart goes to throw the megaphone to Ric Flair, but Macho Man catches it and hits Flair with it, which does bloody Flair up. And then Macho Man goes for the pin, but Jimmy Hart distracts the ref while Pillman and Benoit come out, but Savage is able to dispose of them. But then Arn Anderson comes out.
So Jimmy Hart is holding the ref. But as he's holding the ref, distracting him, the Four Horsemen come out and try to attack Savage, and Savage disposes of him. But it's taken a while. So Pillman comes out, and the ref is still distracted, and he has to be able to feel all the bumps people are taking behind him,
I know.
Eventually, Arn comes out. He hits Savage with the brass knuckle thing. That he puts Flair on top of Savage, and wouldn't you know it, the ref is finally done being distracted as soon as Flair's on top of Savage. And Flair pins Savage, and we have a new champion.
I did think, even though I was sad to see Macho Man having such a short reign with this one, I do think they did a good job of making this feel like a big win. It's selling it like as a huge moment for Flair. This is his 12th time being the world champion. Mm-hmm. So that is the end of the show there. Flair is the new champion. I don't mind Flair being champion. 96 Flair, which we'll have to get into. It's fantastic.
Him and Savage rivalry early 96 is still pretty good. They're going to have some good matches coming up.
This will not be the last time you hear of Macho Man and Ric Flair going against one another. But overall, I thought this was a very good pay-per-view.
It was like a B+.
Yeah, definitely my favorite match, I think, would probably be the triangle match. I don't know, for some reason, I really enjoyed that match.
That, Benoit, and Undertaker.
Yeah, that was good too. So between Starrcade and In Your House, which one do you prefer?
Starrcade.
Yeah, I prefer Starrcade as well. It's not even close to me. Starrcade was better.
Yeah, and WCW also swept the month for me. So, WCW is on a roll. WWF is struggling right now with me.
So that wraps up December. Again, like Jacob said, WCW dominated this month as well. We will see if WWF can make a rebound in 1996. But for us, the clear winner in 1995 from September to the end of the year was clearly WCW. But we do have some more end-of-year awards. Now, this one is a bit limited just because it only was, a few months here.
We have so much data to work with.
But we can first start by doing who we think our MVP was for each company. Now, mine for WCW was Sting. I just felt like he really was consistent with his match quality. And storyline-wise, minus his obliviousness to Ric Flair, I thought he was the most exciting. I think consistently the most over with the crowds.
Staying also for the year of 1995 for the Monday Night Wars episodes, and this counts Nitros and pay-per-views. Sting was 15-2. By far the best record of both companies. So he wrestled a lot and won a lot. I would pick Savage for mine because he was the champion. He's got a big feud with Flair coming up, so it's just setting up. He's a big time player, setting up stuff. Thing's not a bad pick, but I'll go Savage.
Now for WWF, I think it's a little bit easier to pick the MVP from these months of watching. Mine is Bret Hart.
Mine would also be Bret Hart.
I think a lot of people would pick Shawn Michaels, but
for Raws and pay-per-views, the British Bulldog had more wins. He had one more win. He was 7-3. But Bret Hart was 6-1. Now Bret Hart was definitely the MVP for WWF.
Now he hasn't had the best storylines to deal with.
Match with Diesel was really good. His attitude towards Diesel was really good, and I like that his matches that we saw with Bulldog and Diesel, he made it seem more of like it was legit competition because he's talking about how he's going to use his technical abilities. Yeah,
he started off weak with the Jean-Pierre Lafitte storyline and then the Isaac Yankem King stuff, but yes, he has rebounded quite nicely with the Diesel feud, and then now it's Bulldog feud. Have been much better stuff for him. But yeah, he's carrying WWF at this time. All right, next awards, we got to give a best feud. And I think we'll have to go with what one that Jacob just mentioned, which was Diesel versus Bret Hart.
That would be picked for sure.
And then we also had to let's look at the negative side. Worst feud, I think it's clear as day, no doubt about it, is Hulk Hogan versus the Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah. Anything involving them, absolute dumpster fire.
So I don't even think there's much to explain. If you've seen it, you know exactly what we're talking about. It's crap.
Watch the video of Hogan in the Execution of Mask. You will understand exactly why it was awful.
And so we'll give out a few more. When we get to 96, we'll do more awards just because it'll be more. We can give more in-depth stuff. So we'll just do best new gimmick, and then I'll also do worst new gimmick. So I'll do both. Best for me, Goldust, just because there really wasn't too many new gimmicks that were good.
And none of the other ones that even came had as much. They didn't give as much emphasis as they were giving Goldust. So Goldust is the winner.
He's like the only new character that's been pushed. Worst new gimmick, Yeti. That was terrible. Yeah, even though he's not much.
You're a mummy one day, and then you're a ninja the next, and you're never heard from again. And they were hyping you up to be this like ultimate like Hulk Hogan stopper. Awful.
For the main event of a pay-per-view too.
Yes, main event, and then you have him hug him to death. And for anybody curious, I think the Yeti turns out to be Reese from Raven's Flock in the future.
That is true. Let's go to worst match first, and then we'll end on a positive note by doing best match. Let me do worst match. I think is a whole monster truck / match with Giant at Halloween Havoc.
Anything involving Giant and Hogan on Halloween Havoc was awful.
We agree a lot here, so that's something we're related.
We will differ later. It's just we don't have a lot to work with.
And sometimes the obvious is obvious.
When you see Hogan and Dungeon, everybody has to acknowledge how awful that was. I mean, there's no way.
Just terrible. But best match.
I like the DDP Johnny B. Bad match when Johnny B. Bad won the TV title.
I do like that one. That one probably is the best one, but I also give a shout out to Bret Hart Diesel. That was another good match.
Yeah.
One of those two would be an acceptable answer to best match, not Hogan versus Giant or whatever. 96 is going to be a lot more exciting year. Both companies are going to be starting to get better, especially once we get into the summer months. We're going to see the start of the NWO. So that's going to be huge news. And we're also going to see some iconic faces for the WWF side. They may not be where we know they're going to go, but they're introduced, such as Stone Cold, Mankind. But also in the beginning of the year, we're going to see Vader make jump ship to the WWF. So exciting stuff coming up for the WWF and WCW. So please stay tuned. Thank you for watching our other shows. Of course, our next one's going to be recapping January of 1996. If you're watching with us, please let us know your thoughts on the shows. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and all that fun stuff. And my name's Max.
I'm Jay.
And let the discussions begin.